There's this weird moment when your brain goes quiet, not peaceful, just blank. You're doing something simple, like brushing your teeth or waiting for the kettle to boil, and it hits you. I don't know how much longer I can keep doing this. Not out loud, not in some dramatic breakdown. Just that quiet voice that sneaks in when no one's asking anything from you. And suddenly you feel it. All of it. Because you've been carrying things silently. People assume you're fine. You even act like you're fine. But the version of you they know, that one's running on fumes. You've been the one to keep it all moving. Not because you wanted to, but because nobody else stepped up. And after a while, you stopped waiting for help. You just learned to do it yourself. Fix it yourself. Calm yourself down. Convince yourself it's not that bad. And you got good at it. Too good. Now it's automatic. You get overwhelmed and your instinct is to downplay it. To say, I've handled worse. But who even told you that had to be the standard? And the weird part is, no one ever told you to carry all of this. Not directly. It just happened. One responsibility at a time. One little moment where someone dropped the ball and you picked it up. One stretch of a hard season that never really ended. And now you can't tell the difference between holding it together and just holding on. You're so used to being the anchor for everyone else, you never noticed how heavy you've gotten. And here's the part nobody says out loud. You don't want to be strong today. You don't want to rise above it. You don't want advice. You just want someone to look at you and say, yeah, that's a lot. You're allowed to feel it. You ever notice how you've become the one people rely on, but there's no one you can call when you're the one not okay? You've trained yourself to be the stable one, the calm one, the got-it-covered one, but there's no medal for it, no relief, just this ongoing weight that never really leaves. And the worst part is, you still keep showing up. You still answer the texts. You still go to work. You still give advice. You don't have the energy to follow yourself. Because it's not that you don't need rest. It's that you don't even know what it would look like to fully drop the act. Not the fake kind of rest, where you scroll your phone for hours and pretend that's relaxing. Not the I'll sleep it off kind of rest. I mean the kind of rest where you don't feel like you're failing just because you're not being productive. Where your body isn't always clenched. Where your mind doesn't feel like it's always buffering in the background, waiting for the next thing to go wrong. But the way you've been living, there's no room for that kind of rest. You've convinced yourself that if you stop, even for a second, everything might fall apart. Not just your plans, you. And no one sees that part, because you don't show it. You've learned how to mask it so well that people think you're thriving. They say you're doing great. They don't see that underneath all the strength is just survival. And that's what's been making you tired. Not laziness, not weakness. The pretending, the managing, the overfunctioning, the way you silently carry other people's chaos just so they won't have to deal with it. You weren't made to hold all of this, but somewhere along the way, you stopped believing you had a choice. And now it's automatic. You clean up messes that aren't yours. You apologize for things you didn't cause. You say yes when everything in you is screaming no, just to keep the peace. But at what cost? This constant performing has consequences. You're emotionally overdrafted. You've been spending energy you didn't have, just to keep up this version of you that everyone expects. And when you try to rest, you feel guilty. When you try to set a boundary, you feel selfish. When you think about asking for help, you hesitate. Because what if they think you're weak now? But here's the truth you've been avoiding. You've been strong in the wrong direction. You've been holding everything except yourself. And at some point, even if it's just quietly, at 2 a.m., your body starts to say, I can't do this anymore. Not because you're failing, but because you finally hit your limit. And limits don't make you fragile. They make you real. There's nothing wrong with you. You're just done pretending. You've outgrown survival. And now you're trying to figure out what it means to actually live without carrying the weight of 10 different roles on your shoulders. But here's the part that hurts the most. You didn't choose this way of living. It just kind of happened. One day, you were a kid just reacting to the world. Then slowly, you started adjusting, lowering your voice, taking up less space, sensing what people needed before they said it, being easy to be around, helpful, reliable, not because you wanted to play that role, but because it felt safer than being too much, or too honest, or too messy. And maybe it worked. People liked you. You avoided conflict. You got things done, but you lost something in that exchange. And now here you are, still doing it, still managing the room before you manage yourself. And that's the real weight. Not just what you're doing, but who you've had to become to keep doing it. That's why you're tired in places sleep can't touch. You're tired from pretending you don't need anything. Tired from swallowing your reactions to keep the peace. Tired from making things easier for everyone else, while quietly making things harder for yourself. You know that moment where someone says, "Let me know if you need anything," and you say, "All good," even when it's not. That's the pattern. You don't ask, you don't share, you don't open up, because somewhere deep down, you don't expect anyone to really show up if you do. So you carry it, alone. And over time, it starts to feel normal. To suppress your emotions, to talk yourself out of your own needs, to pretend you're not lonely when you are, to push through when your body is begging you to stop. And the world, it rewards you for it. You get praise for being strong, for being dependable, for being low maintenance. But that praise is a trap, because it keeps you in the role. And the longer you stay in it, the harder it becomes to even admit, "I don't want to do this anymore." Not like this, not alone, not silently. But change doesn't start with quitting everything. It starts with honesty, with allowing yourself to stop pretending you're fine, with realizing that you don't need to earn your rest. You don't need to justify feeling tired. You don't need to keep explaining why things feel heavy. They just are. And that's enough. You can be strong and still need support. You can be grounded and still feel overwhelmed. You can be the person others lean on and still say, "I need someone too." You don't have to keep shrinking to be accepted. You don't have to keep performing peace just to avoid being a burden. You don't have to keep living like your needs are optional. The version of you that keeps carrying everything, they've done enough. They've protected you. They kept you functioning. But maybe it's time for a different version now. One that doesn't just survive, but actually gets to exist, fully, unapologetically, without always holding the world together alone. You don't need a breakdown to decide you're done. You don't need everything to fall apart before you're allowed to change something. And you don't need permission to want peace. Because if you're honest, you've been thinking about it already. About slowing down, about setting limits, about walking away from certain roles, certain expectations, maybe even certain people. You've just been too afraid to say it out loud, because change feels dangerous when all you've ever known is endurance. You've gotten so used to managing things that aren't even yours. Other people's moods, their reactions, their comfort. You keep showing up for people who wouldn't even notice if you disappeared. And the longer you do it, the more you lose track of what you even need. That's what happens when survival becomes your default. You stop dreaming. You stop asking questions. You stop noticing that you're slowly becoming invisible, even to yourself. But here's what most people won't tell you. You can want more without being ungrateful. You can say no without being cold. You can pull back without needing a dramatic explanation. Some things don't need closure. They just need to stop draining you. And maybe the point isn't to fix your life in one giant move. Maybe it's just this. Start refusing to carry what's not yours. Because most of what's weighing you down isn't even about you. It's the pressure to be enough, the need to be understood, the fear of being too much, the expectation to keep proving yourself in rooms that don't even see your value. But you've done enough proving. You've held it down long enough. You've bent so far to make everyone else comfortable, and now you don't even remember what your own boundaries feel like. You don't owe anyone an explanation for putting yourself first. You don't need a reason to take a breath and actually mean it. There's a version of you, not some future, perfect, healed version, but a real one, here and now, who's just tired of the performance, tired of being strong in silence, tired of smiling through the pressure, tired of being the one who's always fine. And maybe this is where that ends. Not with some big announcement, not with a dramatic decision, but with a quiet one, made inside your own mind, where you finally say, I'm not doing this to myself anymore. That's how it starts. That's how it shifts. Not overnight, but in small moments where you catch yourself reaching for that old survival pattern, and this time you choose something else. Not because you're broken, not because you failed, but because you finally see it clearly. You've been strong in every direction except inward, and now it's time to come back to yourself. Not as a task, not as a healing project, just as a person who's still here, still breathing, still worthy, even when they're not holding it all together. But that's the strange part, isn't it? When you finally start to let go, not even of everything, just something, it doesn't feel like relief at first. It feels uncomfortable, almost wrong, like you're doing something you'll be punished for, because you're so used to chaos, so used to rushing, so used to fixing, that when things get quiet, you don't trust it. Your nervous system doesn't know how to be still. It assumes silence means danger. So you find ways to stay busy, stay helpful, stay needed, even when you're exhausted. You check your phone, you open 5 tabs, you say yes to plans you don't want to go to. You offer help before anyone asks, not because you want to, but because rest feels like something you haven't earned. And that right there is the real trap. You've been confusing rest with laziness, stillness with failure, discomfort with guilt, because the pace you've been living at, it doesn't allow space for peace, only distraction. You've been operating like your value is based on how much you can tolerate, how much you can carry, how much you can keep pushing through without flinching. But that's not strength. That's survival dressed up as identity. And here's the cost of it. You lose your ability to hear yourself. You lose touch with your instincts. You don't even know what you want anymore, just what's expected of you. You become a version of yourself that functions well on the outside, but feels hollow inside. And you convince yourself that's maturity, that this is just what adulthood looks like, that growing up means abandoning your needs quietly and calling it responsibility. But that's not maturity, that's depletion. And it's not sustainable, because no matter how much you ignore it, your body knows, your spirit knows, that little tension in your chest, the one that doesn't go away, that's not normal. That's not just stress. That's your soul asking you to come back, to stop moving for a minute, to sit with yourself, to look at your life and really ask, who am I doing this for? And is it worth the cost? Because maybe this version of your life, this speed, this weight, this grind, wasn't built for you. Maybe it was built around your fear of letting people down, fear of losing your place, fear of being seen as unreliable, weak, or selfish. And maybe that fear was never yours to begin with. Maybe you just picked it up, like everything else you've been carrying, quietly, automatically, without question. And maybe that's the whole point. Not to be everything for everyone, not to keep it together so well that no one ever sees the cracks, but to finally admit that you've been tired, not because you're broken, but because you've been doing far too much alone. That version of you, the one who's held it all without asking for help, who's shown up without showing what it cost, who's smiled through pressure, pain, silence, and stress. They don't need to prove anything else. They just need to rest, to soften, to be supported, even if it's just by your own honesty. So if you're here right now and something in you whispered, "That's me," while listening, then maybe this moment was the permission you didn't know you needed. You're allowed to let go. You're allowed to not be okay. You're allowed to stop holding it all together. And when you do, you'll realize something powerful. You were never meant to carry all of this on your own. You just got so used to doing it, you forgot that life was supposed to feel lighter than this. Let it be lighter now. If you felt this video, drop the word carrying in the comments. Just that one word, no explanation needed. If you know, you know.